Welcome to On the Sidelines, the show that discusses sports and how sports intersects our lives. I'm Paul McGrath, and I'm glad that you could join us for the show. We have a very special show today as we're coming to you from the TD Garden, live at Legends, and we're going to discuss what goes behind the preparation of an event here at the Boston Garden, or at the TD Garden, depending upon the name you have. We have with us three guests. We have the president of the TD Garden, Amy Latimer. We have the director of security at the TD Garden, Rich Teahan. And we have usher extraordinaire, Judy O'Dwyer. Later in the show, we will have our usual photos from On the Sidelines segment. There will be a trivia question concerning the picture, and thanks to our friend at Avidia Bank, a great prize for the winner. All you have to do is email us at studio@westborotv.org with On the Sidelines as a subject matter. I will repeat that address at the photos from On the Sidelines segment of the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Well, before we get to the TD Garden, I'd like to get a little bit of a background on how each one of us got to the TD Garden, what our backgrounds was that prepared us for this. My usher extraordinaire, Judy, give us a little background on you and how you actually got to the TD Garden.
Okay, so I was employed with the city of Boston, working at the Boston Public Schools, and a co-worker and myself lived across the way at Roxbury Community College, and we saw a little sign that said job fair for the Boston Garden. And during our lunch break, we said, let's go over and try it. Wouldn't that be fun to get a part-time job over there? So we went on a whim, and we went over, and we were hired on the spot, and we kind of went back to work and said, okay, that just happened. But so that was 24 years ago, and we thought we'd work a couple of nights, and it would be fun, and a little extra money, and we were working all the time, going from one job to the next, and we loved it.
Now, was that the TD Garden or the old garden?
We actually closed the old garden, the last two events that were there. One was the celebration of the closing, right. And I believe there may have been a hockey game. The last hockey game, was there a Bruins game?
It was the last hurrah.
Preseason game.
Yeah.
So that was it. We were given somebody else's uniforms, and we went in there just for training purposes, and we had a ball.
So you've seen the old garden and the new garden.
Yes.
You've gone to both of them.
Yes, and opened this one up. Was here opening night.
Do you remember opening night here?
I do.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Okay, we got us to the garden. How about you, Rich?
So I was born and raised in Quincy, Mass, a local kid here. Went to school here, college here. But just an interesting thing is my uncle ran security at the old garden. So I would come into all the prime Celtics, Bruins games, Whaler
only
games.
the prime ones?
Well, they were great. My father-in-law was an usher here, so he had season tickets. So we got to see some great games back in the early 80s. It was great. And then I actually went into the FBI in 1991 and left Massachusetts, was stationed in Connecticut for 10 years. Washington, D.C. for 5, and then back here in 2006. Worked a myriad of investigations, from criminal, counterterrorism, executive protection, and then ultimately to my retirement in 2017, and here I am.
Now, back at the old garden,
Sure.
Did you ever see what type of security there was? Did you ever get to see behind the scenes and compare that to what you have to do now? It was more or less, I'm enjoying this.
So, Paul, I was in high school, so I wasn't paying attention to much except the game.
You're enjoying the game, yeah.
Yeah, and those were exciting times, so I can't really do the comparison.
Yeah.
But, I think we have a good program here, and we're always trying to improve.
All right, well, we'll get to that. Amy, you're not from Massachusetts, are you?
I am not. I am from Maryland, but I have, much like Judy, I'm 24 years. I was moving to Massachusetts for my husband's job, and I was hired as a consultant for the opening of the TD Garden. So there were 9 preview events, and they had different groups working with each of those 9 events, and they needed somebody to coordinate the 9 consultants. And excuse me, I was hired. I came up here to look for a job. Very much has always been interested in sports, playing sports, and as a passion, but I didn't know what this entailed. So I was hired as a consultant in August, and we opened September 30th. And then I came back and was hired January 5th, 1996, full time, and have been here ever since.
So you were working for the Garden, the Bruins. Who were you actually working for at that
Delaware
time?
North.
Delaware
It's for the
North,
opening
yeah.
of then. Went from Shawmut Center to Fleet Center, and there was Fleet Center right before it opened, and it was fantastic. It was a wonderful opportunity. Loved the organization.
I know somewhere along the line when I was, researching this, I saw somewhere, and I don't know if it's true or false, that the Garden has had 33 names. So it's hard to believe.
I don't know if we've had
Well, I'm just telling you what I saw. No, starting with the old Boston Garden.
Well, that
Because it was
I don't know.
I think it was the Boston Madison Square Garden back. I'm going back in the day, even before me.
Yeah, Paul, I can't address that. I know we went from Shawmut to Fleet, and then TD Bank North, and then TD Garden. So we've had a few name changes in our 24 years.
Just in yours,
Yes.
yeah. So one of the questions people want to know is planning ahead. You've got hockey, you've got basketball, you have the concerts, you've got ice volleys. I don't know if we have boxing anymore, but how far out do you go to plan? Because somebody must do scheduling here, and you must have to coordinate all this.
We do, and the scheduling is probably a tough job, right? And one, we're so fortunate to be a 2-team building, right? So the fact that we have NBA, we have the Celtics, and that we have the Bruins. But basically, we submit our schedules for those 2 teams a year in advance, and then the NHL schedule comes out usually, first week of July, end of June sometimes, and then the NBA schedule comes out in August for that following year.
Right.
So I remember even in 2018, I think we got the schedule in August, and we, for the first time, had a preseason game for the Celtics, like September 29th. So we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Now, the dates that we protect are the events that we know every year. We have the Bean Pot and Hockey East and Disney on Ice, the Harlem Globetrotters. So we plug in those dates, maybe some concerts we know, and then we send off all those dates to the leagues, and then they come back with the schedule. And when the schedule is released, then we have other open dates, and we can go back and plug in concerts that we've been trying to book.
So you have certain dates plugged in, you send that to the different leagues, they come back, and then they've got to do their hodgepodge or whatever.
And then we try to have one national event every year, and those are usually years out. So when we bid on NCAA, like the Frozen Four that we're going to have in 2022, we've known about that. So we know to protect those dates in 2022 because it's usually a 4 or 5 year in advance notice.
Yeah, so now let's go to the favorite months of May and June, when we want the Bruins playing.
Yes,
we want
do.
the Celtics playing.
We do.
But sometimes it doesn't happen, and all of a sudden we have open dates. Can we fill those in, or is just that's a tough
So that's a great question, and it's one that I think the industry, mostly the concert industry, is trying to deal with. We have a couple of graduations that we take care of. The challenge is that you need to leave the dates open for the playoffs, and a lot of it's driven by the TV schedule. If you put concerts in, and people do, they take a risk on where their team could end up, and then they might have a show, and then some teams, when they get their schedule, they might have to move that concert, which is challenging for some. I think there might be an option someday that maybe some performers are willing to book a date knowing it could be plus or minus a day, and then, just like the playoffs, you don't exactly know when people come together. But I don't think the two industries of entertainment and sports have come to a good resolution yet to get us to that point. But I hope so. Listen, I'd rather not even have to worry about it and have both teams in the playoffs.
Well, that's the easy one.
I'm
that
very
makes your
happy
job easy. Yeah.
working till June. I've been there when you're not working till June. It's not nearly as much fun as working in June. Fine with that.
Judy, you've been here for, I guess you said 24 years. If I were to have you close your eyes or put a blindfold on you, could you tell the difference between a hockey crowd, a basketball crowd, a concert crowd? Is there a difference?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. A Bruins crowd comes in and you hear them. A Celtics crowd is a little more reserved.
Yeah.
And it's just, they both have the same level of excitement. It's just a more reserved group that comes into the basketball game, in my opinion. The people are really pumped up for both. The Bruins people have the gear on. The Celtics people also have the gear. But the Bruins people tend to get a little bit overdressed. You know, they love costumes and, you know, noisemakers, which aren't allowed. But sometimes they make them.
Well, some people are noisy, yeah.
But,
How about
so
a regular season crowd versus playoffs?
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I love all my regular season ticket holders, and when the playoffs come, everybody's really clamoring to get those tickets. So sometimes people do sell them, and other times, you know, they're very difficult to get. So I know you see a little change in the crowd as the playoffs continue on. They get more expensive as they go on. And they're just harder to get. So sometimes it's a good blend of new faces and the regulars.
I know you talked about tickets. I know the Red Sox, they hold off tickets till there's some certain morning. I don't know. People go at 6 o'clock and get extra tickets. Do you hold back certain tickets for certain events, or if the Bruins sell out, they're sold out? Special?
The teams really manage their tickets.
Teams manage those?
Yeah, so the Celtics manage what they put out to the general public. I know both teams hold tickets to make sure the general public can purchase them.
That's the team holding them.
Yeah, and the Bruins manage that. Our box office sells those tickets. And even sometimes in concerts, you end up having releases day of, but it's usually because they've come into town and what they think their setup is going to be changes a little bit, and they might have been conservative and overhold, and then they release tickets day of.
Well, we get here for the game, and we hope that there's security. And Rich, you have security, and I'd like to go over the hierarchy, because there isn't just your security. We've got different types of security, different layers. Can you give us a little background on what is here for security, so people can feel that they're secure here?
So we utilize a third-party security vendor here, and we deal with the leagues, with the NHL security and the NBA security, and they have very stringent standards on screening and canine patrols and closed circuit TV, and it's very robust, their security policies and procedures. So we implement those policies and procedures to the best of our ability, and it is very layered in that, you know, I work for TD Garden in Delaware North, but I'm interacting and intersecting with NBA, NHL, Live Nation, AEG, Messina, all the promoters for concerts. And the promoters for concerts will have their security, but also the artist will have their security. So it's interacting with all of them. I will tell you that the concert security riders, it's a document that we deal with on providing security services, is very robust. And we just have to adhere to the best of our ability to those policies and procedures. And I think we do a good job with it. I do.
Well, I was here for Game 5, let's see, June 8th, 2011. Bruins are playing Vancouver. It was Game 4. And the Premier of Canada was here, Stephen Harper. So now, and my understanding is he didn't want to sit in a box. He wanted to sit with the crowd. So you may not have been here, but now you have, I don't know if you have Canadian security, maybe you have, I don't know if the U.S. security to be here. You would have had quite a few tiers there. How does the hierarchy work? Who has precedent, and how do you get involved in that and saying, you know, who goes where? I'm not asking where they go, but
sure. So I was not here.
Yeah, right.
I've been here for just shy of 2 years, but I think I could probably answer that question based on my knowledge. Is for that particular event, you would have Canadian security. You'd also have Department of State, who deals with foreign diplomats and whatever and whatnot. So it would be a very robust security posture
imagine,
here,
yeah.
very robust. And just like the Democratic National Convention was here in 2004, the Secret Service would have had that, and they would have maintained. When you say hierarchy, it would have been them all the way down, working together as a team,
Right.
in order to, provide the best security.
So when something like that happens, does that come through you, Amy, or do you pass it on to Rich? I mean, you've got a lot of coordination here from the different
We
security
do,
forces.
and sometimes those dignitaries and guests come in through different avenues. Sometimes their detail know Rich and they directly contact him and say how it goes. Sometimes it comes through us. We also coordinate with the Boston Police Department, the MBTA security. So you're right, there's other layers even just coming into the building. So we take care of them.
Gosh. Okay, one thing we haven't done, we should look at, we've given a little history of you, but let's give a little history of the Boston Garden. Here we have a nice picture going back of the old garden, and you can see to the left of it the Madison Hotel. We'll talk about that. And to the right of it, what we know as 150 Causeway. And I know from the hockey standpoint, the players used to come out there, and the bus would be right on Causeway Street. But that building was designed by boxing promoter Tex Rickard, and it opened on November 17th, 1928, with a cost of $10 million. The Bruins' first game there was November 20th, 1928, and they lost 1-0 to the Montreal Canadiens. Not a good start. The first non-sporting event, it's amazing what you learn when you review this, was a conclave on March 24th, 1929, featuring English evangelist Rodney Gypsy Smith. I don't know if any of us have heard of him, but I also checked out Rodney, and somewhere when he was around 80 years old, he married a woman about 50 years younger than him. So Rodney was quite an evangelist. It's hosted basketball, circuses, ice shows, we know this, political rallies, and entertainers, including the Beatles. Now, the connecting hotel was constructed in 1930, and that would be demolished in 1976. And due to, I think, Johnny Most, who was an announcer, the radio announcer for the Boston Bruins, I think we all knew that up through 1968, the capacity was 13,909. He used to say that every day. Anyway, the garden would close in 1995, and it was demolished here in 1998. And the construction, we can see here, Amy, you probably had a foot between...
9 inches.
9 inches, I'm sorry.
No, 9 inches.
Yeah, that was quite a feat, really. And I guess I don't know, could they implode it, or they didn't want to implode it?
So you couldn't implode it because it was so close to the new building.
Yeah.
And so they basically, it was like coming in every day, and it was like a loaf of bread. They were just cutting down, taking down each section. And interesting enough, it caused awful traffic jams on 93 because people would stop, pull over to take a picture on a highway of it. But it was fascinating to look in, because we did, the seats were made available, but it was like looking into, for a lot of people, a lot of great histories and everything else. It's just a fascinating way to demolish this building.
Well, it must have been something also, because we can see the elevated subway here.
Yes.
I mean, you're very close to that, too.
Yeah, not a lot, yeah. So you really had to be really surgical about taking the building down.
Do you remember how many years it took to build the new TD Garden?
I don't. I'm trying. Well, I know it opened September 30th,
so
95.
Again, that was just as interesting because...
I think 93.
That
was 93 to 95. Does that sound...
Because they had to be 9 inches within building, let alone taking it down.
Yes.
And you were here then, and that was, yeah?
Well, I was here in 95 when it opened.
When it opened,
yeah. Not when it was being built.
Well, if we go, let's take a peek here at the inside. This is a inside, and we can see, unfortunately, many memories and many games and thoughts that we had are being demolished. But we do have here, the garden lives on. The garden lives on a little bit in my house. If we can show here, I do have a couple of seats from the garden, and you can see the garden, our little Bruins corner. But the other thing, Amy, is the width of those chairs. You were very cozy, I guess would be a word to put.
Cozy's a great way to put it.
with your neighbor at the stadium. So I assume when we did the new garden, we opened that up a little bit.
Seats are little and no obstructive views,
Yeah.
right? No,
There is no obstructed view.
no poles.
Although I will tell you that from seat for seat, I think some of the old garden had better vantage. But overall, the new garden, there is no obstructed view.
Yeah, so
Unless the person in front of you stands up.
But you added 4,000 more seats,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
for
yeah.
hockey, so it had to go somewhere. But we're still really, I think, when you go to some buildings, because I think of the old Boston Garden's still there when they
Yeah.
built it, we're a very vertical building.
Right.
Some people, their views in the balcony are much
Well, they go
farther
out,
away.
out
Yes.
instead of vertically up.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that's and there we have now. That's what we have. Much better looking building. And inside we're doing good there. How about the TV and radio? How do people get the rights to that? Do you negotiate that with the teams, or NBC comes in? What happens there?
That's the team inventory.
each
So
team?
the Celtics and the Bruins have their respective relationships for TV and radio. We help, certainly once they have a partner, we help make sure we facilitate it and make sure we give them access and help them to be successful. Obviously, the Bruins in part ownership with Nesson.
Right.
That's pretty simple. And then the Celtics have their own
Okay.
podcast. Yep.
Judy, getting back to you, do you have any most asked questions from people besides like, where's my seat, or is there any, what?
Some of the most asked questions, obviously, restroom, how do I get out of this place? Because everything seems to be going up. So I have to explain to them that everything will reverse at the last quarter or the end of the third period, and same with concerts. It's a greater challenge when you have people here for concerts. They're less familiar with the building. Bruins and Celtics people kind of follow the pack. But a lot of people also want to know, where do we outside of the building? How did they get to their hotel? Where should we take our children? You have to have like a broad range of knowledge about the area, because not everybody is a local person. So you get a lot, just everyday questions and a lot of challenging questions.
So what time do you have to report for duty?
So I have to report for duty for the Bruins games at 4:45 and the Celtics games at 5:15. So I live on the South Shore in Milton, and I get in my car at 3:30 and give myself at least an hour to get in here, and then show up, go to roll call. We all get our assignments, and we go to our designated areas.
So what happens if the Bruins go into 2 or 3 extra overtimes in a playoff? Are you still on duty, and there's still people meandering around?
Yes. People never leave.
Yeah.
They stay right to the end. They're so loyal, both teams, and also the bean pot that just recently happened. We've had multiple overtimes. So we're talking midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're on duty. And
I'm
Rich,
on duty.
how about you, Rich? What time? When do we start security?
24/7, Paul.
24 hours.
So every day is different. That's the beauty of working with arena security. Is I could be working, 6 a.m. till midnight. Sometimes it just depends. There's a lot of things that need to be done here during the day. External agency contact, planning for the event itself on the lead up to the event. So it could be, it's really random on how many hours I'm here. Typically, on the lead up to an event, I'll be here. It could be 2 p.m. It could be noon. I'm on the phone if it's a concert day, I'm on the phone with the security to get ready for that night. I'm on the phone with the police, making sure our staffing's good, meetings with the security vendor. And then we will usually do a security meeting 3-4 o'clock, and then we'll start placing our staffing for whatever it is, floor seating, early doors, Boston Garden Society premium entrances, parking garage 5 levels below us, which has to be staffed, and then the MBTA garage, our garage underneath us, is just, it requires a lot of staff.
So we have the Bruins playing Montreal, or we have Disney on ice. I assume security for those two might be a little different, or how do you
Yes.
How do you gauge that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at a number of factors. If it's a Bruins Canadiens game, are there any risks involved? Are there any threats? Have we received any kind of social media monitoring, which is really never happens. Disney on Ice is just a different level because you don't have the amount of people in here. You've got typically 2 to 5 to maybe 6,000 people working day shows, afternoon shows, night shows. Could be 2 Disney on Ices, could be 3, could be 1. But it's all family oriented, and we want them to have a good experience, and we need to balance out security with guest experience and make it a good one.
So if Disney has a couple of shows, or we do one of these Bruins and Celtics double events, does the staff stay on, or is it too much to do 2 games? How do we work staff when there's a couple of events the same day?
That's a great question. On the security side, and I'm sure Amy can speak to it too, is we'll typically hold staff, and sometimes we'll have to pay them overtime because we want that consistency. And it's anything from buying them pizza from Pizzeria Regina to actually paying overtime to keep the staff, to make sure our numbers are good and that everybody's safe and secure.
But
it's a long day, Paul.
Well, back in the day, I remember when I was growing up, I don't know if they got the crowd riled up or not, but they'd talk about the referees, especially Johnny Most, or I remember as a boy, Bill Friday was a referee in the NHL, and they'd yell, "Friday's a bum." That was the big... Is there any extra security for the referees,
Yes.
the officials? And is that you, or is that the league? And maybe you could talk about how the league, the NHL and the NBA works in conjunction with you, and they're a little bit different, I believe.
That's a great question. To answer it straight away, yes, the leagues definitely have policies and procedures for the referees in protecting them. We work in concert with the NHL, NBA to actually brief those referees prior to the game for any type of incidents where we need to interact with them, court stoppage, ice stoppage, whatever it may be. We also escort them down the back hallway from the locker rooms to the ice or to the court. And anybody that's in the vomitory, the chute, the corridor where they're going out onto the court or the ice, anybody that conducts any type of language is immediately evicted. Immediate. It's a code of conduct by the leagues that is tried and true, and we adhere to it, and every arena does.
So when you say you escort them down the corridor, is that your people, or the NHL has their own people? Who gives them the escorts?
It's both.
It's a combination?
Yep. Yeah. I could do it one night. The NBA reps do it. We also use our third-party vendor to provide them security and just monitor for any type of incidents at all.
How about you, Judy? If there's an incident, who's your first call to? Whoever's around, how does that work?
Sometimes it can be that easy.
Yeah.
And other times we actually carry a pager. It's called a JTEC. It has several buttons to alert security or EMT, the supervisors. The chain of command is, if you can deal with it yourself, that's fine. If it escalates to the next level, then you reach out to a supervisor, and beyond that, security, Boston Police if needed. But there's a whole chain of command, but they do a great job of washing out the top.
Amy, I'm going to ask you a trust one here. You're a woman in a man's world, really. I mean, you started, wasn't this a man's world, and here you are? Did that present any challenge to you, or you just said, "This is my job, I'm going to do my job"?
No, I think, I think it's also changed over the time period that I've been in this role, and I look at our staff, and I think it's, we have a lot of women in key roles. I think that what was really probably was great for me is that I had some really good mentors within Delaware North, and the Jacobs family's been fantastic to me. They've always been supportive. Charlie Jacobs locally, and helped give me the tools to be successful. And I don't really think they thought male or female. They just thought she can do the job, and we're going to put her in a place to be successful. And I think sometimes there's different personalities and perspectives, and it rounds out your team if you have people that think a little bit differently. And I think they were, thoughtful about that ahead of time.
Well, Red Auerbach used to say, I'm going to draft the best person available. And it sounds like, who's the best person available for the job? Happens to be you.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Judy, any memorable moments or crazy moments that you can remember over your 24 years here?
Lots of memorable and crazy. There are so many, and every season is a new memory, multiple new memories, wonderful memories, historical memories. A few that come to mind most recently is Michelle Obama speaking here, which the opportunity to hear her speak is just amazing. And just to hear many people speak, the commencement speakers for a lot of the graduation, are people that you would never, ever in your lifetime have the chance to hear or be near. We've seen presidents, Barbara Bush was able to reach out. She shook my hand. That was really fun. But 4 years ago, they celebrated the 20th anniversary here. And they made a lot of wishes come true for people. And we had a pediatric cancer survivor. Her name was Quinn, a 5-year-old. And the garden did a wonderful job bringing her in to be princess for a day. And we welcomed her in, her family, her extended family. She got to be have lunch with her favorite princesses from the Disney cast, and they made her over and made her into a princess. And so to be a part of things like that are really special. Is one that stands out in my mind. And just everyday people like yourself, Paul.
Yeah, well, the other thing is it just isn't what we see in the events. I know Thanksgiving, Amy, we can talk about the event we have for before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so the Table of Friends, we typically have the week of Thanksgiving. And when I first started, it was just, wasn't as many people. We actually used to do it where the turnstiles are, where you actually come in, and we had tables on level 2. Unfortunately, the need grew. So now that we have, just short of 1,000 people that come in, and I think what's been nice about being able to do this is, our great partners with the city, and the organizations that help connect us with Boston's homeless. And, people get to come on and they get their, mashed potatoes from Cam Neely or gravy from Jackie Raval, the police commissioner and the mayor, and they all take this role to serve the homeless, which I think people really appreciate. And it's people they've either watched, Celtics or Bruins. We try to make it inviting on the arena floor. We've got some music, and it's one event, though, you wish you'd never had to do. Right? You wish that we could not ever have to have that event again. But if we're going to do it, we want to do it in a place where people feel welcome and they get to have a little bit of fun.
Well, I know I was fortunate enough to be able to help out. I was just passing out soft drinks. But the thank yous that you received, I mean, the need is out there. Unfortunately, the need is out there. And to be able to help them, give them a little spark at that Thanksgiving was tremendous. How about people like to know, they're always calling up, if especially in the winter, cancellation. I think I know what the Bruins policy is, but is there a policy per team or per event? How do we do cancellations, especially wintertime? We don't know what kind of weather.
The leagues really make that call, and it's if the state is in a state of emergency. So if the governor says it's a state of emergency and people should not be traveling, we would not hold the event.
Or if the visiting team isn't here.
And I had the pleasure of being in this role for months, like 6 months, and got to cancel the first NHL game when the visiting team was in town, and we couldn't host it. It was Tampa Bay, and we had a blizzard. And the challenge was we couldn't get our associates to get here, right?
There's no one to man
and you
the
had
building,
to shut down the highways and everything else, public transportation. So Tampa was actually here, but we didn't have the game, and they rescheduled it for the end of the season.
Well, you were also here during the Boston Marathon bombing.
Same time
And
frame.
I remember, I think there were a couple of games that had to be postponed and canceled during that time frame.
So we canceled the Monday game.
So there must have been a large coordination with security, and Rich wouldn't have been here, but you must have been on the phone 24 hours a day on that one.
Yeah, that Monday, certainly the news and everything that happens, and that's a case where you really can't host a public event that night, right? So the Bruins game was rescheduled. the Celtics game that was Tuesday was not played again. It didn't have any
bearing on the standings?
bearing on the
Right,
standings,
yeah.
so the Celtics just decided to cancel the game. Wednesday came, and that we had a Bruins game, and it was the first public event since the bombing, and it was a tough day. We had security through every part of this building, dogs, armed personnel outside, and I wasn't sure, are people going to come? Were they not going to come? Did they feel safe? And they came. It was a full house, and I think if you think of memorable moments, was Renee
Right.
Rancourt singing the national anthem, and he starts, and then everybody else started singing.
That was-
if you weren't touched by this city and that moment, I felt like it was a turning point, sort of, we're not going to let this, take us down, and we're going to stand together. And I always say that, we're not saving lives here. We try to make it a little bit better, but that day I think was so important for this city to come together, and it was memorable.
Well, I think this, Boston Strong, that just proved Boston Strong that
It
day.
did.
Rich, sometimes I forget, I don't know if it was 9/11, maybe it was after the Marathon bombing. Sometimes when you come in, they'd be putting scanners under the car or checking there, a little extra security. How far does that go, and when do you back off on that, or when would you have that happen?
So I guess I could equate it best by just using the regular season and looking at security during the regular season, and then once the teams make the playoffs, which both of them will, the playoffs begin, we ramp up security, and it's not only driven by us here, but it's driven by the leagues. And that's why last year was memorable for me, because it was year one for me. Celtics make it all the way to Eastern Conference Finals. They're in Game 7 with Cleveland, and they lose. And so we were so heavily ramped up into getting ready for NBA Finals, not only from space needed for TV trucks, but a security posture that would have been second to none. It would have been rated what's called a Tier 1 security event, which would have brought all kinds of assets here.
So you weren't here, but when the Bruins did win the Stanley Cup in 2011 in Vancouver, it was terrible outside. Would there be more ramping up outside also? I mean, in an event like this?
Yeah,
it was terrible what happened.
We work heavily. I think there's always lessons learned from every type of event, from a proactive and a reactive standpoint. But we work heavily hand in hand with Boston Police. Amy has a great relationship with the police commissioner, and we just focus our efforts here to what's called pushing out the perimeter, which is to try and create a security layer outside, everything from, canine assets to, just more a robust presence of police officers, directing traffic, and just patrolling in general.
So it is ramped up in the playoff, and I suppose there's more of a national focus too.
Correct.
On those games.
Correct.
Or especially if it's the Bruins playing a Canadian team, you've got an international focus.
Sure.
And I would add, I think the mayor and the governor have done a great job about being preemptive and talking to everybody about the championships and about having good behavior after the wins. And maybe it's been good that this town has now been spoiled with so many that there's good behavior afterwards. I was in Vancouver for that, and it was sad. I feel like fans here, have a different respect level now and manage it.
How about when we win the cup or we win the NBA championship, Amy, and we've got to get ready for parade? How involved are we on that? Is it all of a sudden we've got a new crash course?
Yeah, no, it was, so in 2011, we landed from Vancouver, and myself and Cam went directly to the mayor's office with everyone sitting around a table, commissioners in the whole 9 yards. We had taken a red eye, and we might have smelled like champagne a little bit, and walked right into that meeting. And it was great because they had already been pre-discussing it, and the way we landed, we ended up with that Saturday parade, which was fantastic, and I think was such a great idea, because you could have more people attend and didn't affect schools, and so they were on it and everybody coordinated and worked out. Those are the best meetings to go to. I'm happy to have those all day.
Even if you're not awake.
That didn't matter.
But you did stage it at the where the old garden was, because that was
We
leveled
did.
as a parking lot,
Right.
and that worked out well.
Worked out great.
So planning ahead, Amy, when we get the cup the next time.
Don't you worry. I will find space.
You got a
Don't
place
you worry
to
one
stage
bit.
this.
We will get all those duck boats lined up, ready to go.
Okay. All right. I think we've got a video here. We've gone from the old garden to the new garden, and we're not going to be at the Hub on Causeway.
Yes?
So let's take a peek. We've got a video here at the Hub on Causeway, and then we can look into the future here a little bit.
In the greatest sports city in the world, on an iconic street called Causeway, in an arena renowned for memorable moments,
Behind left, the batter to the oar! On the oar! Played by Barry.
a legendary transformation is underway. On the hallowed grounds of the original Boston Garden, a renaissance is taking place, and with it, an opportunity to reimagine what's next. Outside TD Garden, the Hub on Causeway and the promise of creating a new district for game days and beyond is on the horizon. And now, Delaware North and the Jacobs family proudly announce an unprecedented expansion of TD Garden that will take place over the next 2 seasons, revitalizing the fan experience in the arena that has long served as the hub of sports in Boston. And it all starts right now. A new entry through the Hub on Causeway development and an underground connection from Subway to the arena will redefine arrivals. Inside, an investment of more than $100 million will provide all fans with innovative spaces and new amenities, bringing the game day experience to life and to a whole new level on every level. Expanded concourse areas on the loge and balcony levels offer dramatic floor-to-ceiling views of the hub below. Distinctive dining options include food hall-style offerings and grab-and-go options, large gathering areas, additional restrooms, and expansive bars. The back row bar is perched over the last row of balcony with vintage vibes, paying fitting homage to the famous gallery gods of yesteryear. And introducing the Boston Garden Society, a dynamic successor to the Premium Club that represents the next frontier and premium experience founded in the heritage of the arena and teams. Boston's newest, oldest sports and social club. Starting this fall, members of the Boston Garden Society will experience exclusive street-to-seat entry. And over the next 2 seasons, new destinations for members will be introduced, including Rafters, a high-energy party deck where Boston Garden Society members can hang with the champions, and the 1928 Club, a new lounge and restaurant with speakeasy vibes like Boston integrates the best of the old with the best of the new. And we're just getting started. TD Garden transformed. Experience legendary.
There we go, the Hub on Causeway. But it's really, I want to talk about the garden, but it's really transforming, I think, the whole neighborhood, the whole perception of this area of Boston. Let's talk a little bit about the garden, and then outside the garden, what we're doing.
Sure. So as you'll see, the fact that we have this opportunity to expand the building by 55,000 square feet is because we're doing the development out front. And that's really levels, 3 through 9 right now. So this year, the teams are redoing the locker room space on level 4, one of our main concourses. We're actually expanding it. I think because when the building was built, we're a little more narrow than some people, and so we're going to be able to bump out and add some amenities, add some more food and beverage. We're adding more restrooms. We're adding, some communal spaces. There's not a lot of space for people to actually sit on the concourse right now, and
they usually stand in the middle of the concourse. Right.
Right. So imagine that the concourse is gonna get bigger. On 4 and 7. 7, if anybody goes to the balcony, has probably the most narrow. So they're the ones that really we're going to enjoy that space even more. And we worked with Sports Service, our food vendor, to come up with some new interesting food and beverage ideas and some grab and go. People like to just grab things and go to their seats. And then on the Boston Garden Society level, so that's what we, renamed premium, because now we have it's the umbrella for all these different products. We have a private club for our club seat holders that we're putting forward, and then you saw level 8. Level 8 is going to be fantastic. 8 and 9, but behind the last row of the seats, which is cinder block today, is actually a 100-foot bar and standing room. So the people that are in the last row can actually turn around and get something directly. And then level 9, the rafters, we're actually adding a row of seats there and creating a new club up there. It's going to be more geared towards people that want to be in the building, want to have these great spaces and lounge chairs and food and beverage. That's the only place you can experience it. But you're not necessarily sitting in seats like traditional seats down below. So it works very much for a millennial crowd that wants to decide to go last minute with friends and be able to get tickets. So that's and most of that will be ready for this season, the 1920 season.
Now, will that increase capacity or just maybe space area, to freely walk around or
so a little bit, but not as much as you think, because we have to make some other changes in the arena. So it's not thousands of seats. It's few seats, but it doesn't change it drastically.
So that's what happens in here.
Right.
But outside, we've got a whole new look.
Front door. So I've been here long enough. I'm wanting to have a front door because we have 50,000 commuters that come into North Station every day, and our fans and the commuters were both coming in those side entrances. This plan was actually developed and really, I think would have been one of the first mixed-use developments in the country for a sports arena. But things changed in the environment in Boston and the office market, everything. So it just took a while, and we partnered with Boston Properties. And I say that 2 acres. I said we go deep and high, right? So we added 500 more parking spaces in the parking garage, mostly to support the retail on the Hub on Causeway. Boston's largest grocery store, Star Market, will be sub-level. So people come off the street, go down an escalator, and have this fantastic grocery store, which is so needed for this neighborhood. There isn't a grocery store right here to meet the demands of the people that are here now, but now there's more residential units coming on. And then there's 2 levels of mixed-use retail. An ArcLight movie theater, Delaware North with our Patina restaurant group is creating a food hall and a restaurant. And then Big Night Entertainment is going to have a live music venue, 1,500 person stand-up in a restaurant, a little bit of retail. And then there's 3 towers. There's an office tower that today is 5 floors, but there's a part 2 that's coming that'll be ready in 2021. We have a hotel with Citizen M, and we have a residential tower.
So when will the hotel be ready?
It'll be ready at the end of this year as well. Mm-hmm.
Come this fall. Yep. And so there'll also be some venues for people who want to grab a quick bite before a game.
Right.
It's going to open that up for them too.
Right. So the food hall you'll be able to...
And they'll be inside as opposed to, unfortunately,
Correct.
Sometimes in the bad weather, you go across the street, try to get back here.
Right. So you could
story.
park downstairs, pop right up into the hub. You can go into any of the restaurants and then come right into the building.
And how many movie theaters?
The ArcLight is 12, I think 15 cinemas. Sorry, 15.
15?
Yes.
Holy jeez.
Yeah. They're really interesting. It's the
So you
pre-order your
really,
seat.
I mean, I saw one article that said, well, they're calling this location Uptown versus the Hub on Causeway. Do you have any pros and cons? Is it your name, or are you going to let them take a name
well,
away?
it's our partner, Boston Properties,
Yeah.
and I think they were throwing it out as, just as an interesting topic. I think I think people decide what these things are. I think it becomes more organic than anything. If you ask me to pick a name for this area, I think we're more of like a garden district, potentially, but we'll see. I think people will
know
decide.
where the garden is. I mean, it's always, and I my own personal opinion, I think Toronto Dominion was smart when they said TD Garden. They closed it up.
Yes.
That's my own opinion. I'm not marketing. You're marketing.
No, but you come here, and people are passionate about it. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. We're going to give you a break. We're going to do our segment that we call photos from On the Sidelines, and many of us like sports, and many of us like photography, and I'm one of those that kind of put them both together. And for you youngsters out there, try to go get a picture. See if you can get a picture. and see if you can get it autographed. And here's one that I took on May 14th, 1995. And sometimes you take a picture and you don't know what you're going to get. And this was the case here. This was the New Jersey Devils playing the Boston Bruins. It was the 5th game of the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Devils led in games 3-1, and they led the game 3-1 in the 3rd period. Cam Neely had scored the only Bruins goal at that point. With less than 5 minutes to go in the game, Adam Oates scored to make it 3-2. The Bruins were down by 1. They pulled their goalie Blaine Locker, but the Bruins couldn't score. So unbeknownst to me, this picture that I took with, fortunately, one snap of the shutter, this is the last playoff goal ever scored at the Boston Garden. And I had no idea it was going to be the last goal scored at the game because I wanted another goal scored. That didn't happen. The other thing I have in the picture is number 27 is Scott Niedermayer. He was a defenseman for the New Jersey Devils. Number 12 for the Boston Bruins, Adam Oates. He scored the goal. And number 30 for the New Jersey Devils was the goalie, Martin Brodeur. All 3 of those gentlemen are now in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Again, when I took the picture, had no idea that those 3 would be in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Brodeur had no idea where that puck is.
No, he didn't. He's looking over
He's
here.
looking one way, and that puck is, yeah.
But I was very fortunate, and my seats at the old Garden were up in the balcony. I was up in the balcony and took that. So I was able to get 2 out of 3 autographs, Adam Oates and Martin Brodeur. I never did get Scott Niedermayer, but if I was batting 2 out of 3 for the Red Sox, I'd be making a couple of dollars. So this is what happens if you make it a hobby, guys. See if you can take a picture, maybe get an autograph, and you don't know what you're going to get. I didn't know the puck was going to be in the net. I didn't know that would be the last goal ever scored in the playoffs of the Boston Bruins at the old Boston Garden, and I didn't know that these 3 players would be ultimately enshrined in the Boston Garden. So we have a trivia question related to this picture, and Avidia Bank has a nice golf package for us for the person who sends us the first correct answer. And I'm going to make it easy this time. All 3 of these players were inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Just give me 1 year that any one of them was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And please just email us at studio@westbrotv.org. Put On the Sidelines as your caption, and give us a year that one of these gentlemen, again, there's Scott Niedermayer and Adam Oates and Martin Brodeur, all tremendous players, and that's from the old Garden. I will say my seat at the old Garden, I do miss it, Amy, even though we have all the
but now
amenities.
you're in the loge.
I'm in the loge, but I did.
You can't get much closer.
Well, I was 2 rows behind Fred Krusek and Derek Sanderson, which were the announcers for TV at the time.
That's hard to beat.
And they were hard to beat. And so, unfortunately for us, back in those days, there was no Jumbotron. There was a large scoreboard, but no Jumbotron. But Fred and Derek had a little monitor. So I got to see the replays that many people didn't see. I didn't pay extra for that either, Amy, but it was great. So I do miss the old Garden, but that picture is one of my favorites that I've taken, the last goal at the Garden. One thing we didn't talk about, I don't know how you do this, Amy, or Richard, who would do this, but May 15th, 1990 was the first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Bruins played the Oilers. And I can remember in the 4th period, first overtime, the PA announcer saying, the last train will be leaving in a half hour. Then the 5th period came. The last train will be leaving in a half hour. Then the 6th period came. Did they keep the train here? How would you coordinate with the MBTA at the train station? Or do you do that now, or is the train gone?
Yeah, there's communication. I think there is. I think that I'm not sure about holding the train today. I don't know that happens, but I think there's communication trying to understand when events are going to end, and certainly those playoff events. But they have a schedule to keep too.
They do, but the playoffs, you never know.
You never know. You're right.
But that game took 3 overtimes. Unfortunately, the Bruins lost. But that was a good game at this Garden. So, any particular moments for you, Amy, that you remember here? People you've met over the years? You've certainly met quite a few people.
I've met a lot of wonderful people,
Yeah.
and not just the people that perform here, but the people that work here.
Yeah.
A lot of really dedicated that, as Judy said, people that are here a lot, and they're, that guest experience is so important because we don't control what happens on the ice or the parquet, or if, somebody sings your favorite song or not, right? Our job is to make sure that they feel like they're coming into a safe and clean environment, that they can enjoy the event. And so, that part, the people that help bring that to the light is probably the most important. Yeah. I'd say it was nice. It was wonderful to see the Celtics win their game here in 2008 at home, and that was interesting. Like Judy, I think we've had some amazing speakers and some bands and shows that have been fantastic. I think for our associates, one of my favorite events was the day that we gave people that worked here rings after the 2011 Stanley Cup. And I think we had an event on the arena floor, and it was people that have been here 50 years, people at all different levels of the organization, and then they felt like they were part of it. It was really a special day.
Well, they did, because the people I know here were proud to show that ring off. Mm-hmm. That was a big day.
Yeah, that was nice.
Rich, with the Hub of Causeway, does this give you any extra duties, or is that a separate area out there? Or do you have more security to watch now that you've got to have different entrances?
I definitely more coordination.
Yeah.
With all of the retail, commercial, residential who will get fitted out over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. I think my job will be to be more of a coordinator with Verizon Security or Ep.7 Security, or Teahan, coordinating with them on certain investigations. I think it makes the footprint bigger for security, especially with a large front door. But I don't see my job getting more complicated. I just see more coordination needed.
Well, life may make it more complicated. We never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
Well, I want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, we all have a little different perspective on what happens here at the TD Garden and the Hub on Causeway as we go along. Rich Teahan, Director of Security, Judy O'Dwyer, our Usher Extraordinary, and Amy Latimer, my friend, President of the Boston Garden.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Having us.
And again, thanks for watching the show. This is Paul McGrath, hoping to see you at the game. And if you're not in the game, I hope to see you on the sidelines.